Welcome to Not So Simple. My name is David Driscoll. In this short video, I want to talk about sources of behavior. The reason I want to talk about sources of behavior is pretty much every video I do has a behavioral component. So I want to talk about sources of behavior. Now I want to be very clear. I'm going to present a perspective on sources of behavior. You are well served by looking on the internet and doing your own research. There have been literally thousands of books, thousands of research studies, and thousands of researchers talking about personality, how personality evolves, how to alter one's behavior. And a lot of these sources are incredibly valid. So I'm going to give you one rather simple, I hope not simplistic, approach to looking at behavior. I will suggest that there are 5 sources of behavior. Let me state them and then I'll go through each one. One is nature. The second is nurture. So we hear about this a lot, nature versus nurture, biology versus environment. A third source of behavior is habit. A fourth source is trauma. A fifth source is free will. Now let me back up and go back to number 1. Let's talk about, briefly, nature. Nature has to do with biology. It has to do with genetics. And we inherit characteristics, even behavior, as human beings, as well as members of a family. You are all slowly but inevitably becoming your parents. You are all, for example, hardwired as a human being to react emotionally to threats, to anything new, novel, different, or unexpected. So that's nature, that's biology. Second, we've got nurture, which is the environment. These are all the things you encounter in the environment from infancy forward. And this is your teachers, your schoolmates, your parents. These are the jobs you have, the coworkers you have. This is the media. This is your exposure to the local and regional culture. These are all out there in the environment. They surround you and they have impact on your behavior. So we've got nature, nurture, both of which, by the way, there's no conflict between them. They both coexist. Third, you've got habits. Habits are largely acquired from experience, and we do, as human beings, tend to repeat behavior. We tend to repeat behavior largely because if we did well with a behavior yesterday, we're going to tend to repeat it today and tomorrow because we survived yesterday and today. Fourth, we've got trauma. Trauma is typically associated with PSTD, and very seriously and largely and correctly so. People in harm's way, people in the military, police officers and the like get traumatized by their experience. I will submit to you, everyone watching this video has been traumatized many, many times across their life. Not to that extent of somebody perhaps in the military or in law enforcement, but the first time the teacher called on you and you weren't able to answer the question and he or she embarrassed you in front of your classmates, that can be a traumatic experience, leading you not to participate the next time in class, or leading you to become the person who always raises their hand. So trauma can have differential effects. A fifth source of behavior is free will. Free will allows you to choose behavior. And in a way, and I'll use this term somewhat advisedly in today's environment, it's kind of like a trump card. I can act based on free will to choose alternative behaviors. I can choose not to maintain a habit, which I find self-destructive. I can even choose, from a biological perspective, if I'm predisposed to addiction, for example, I can choose to take steps to avoid being addicted. I can choose, in fact, to take treatment to deal with trauma. I can go to counseling. I can learn alternative skills. So free will, I often refer to it in class, the classes I teach, as a curse, because the curse of free will is very often we know what we should be doing and we don't do it. The power of free will is you can alter the trajectory of your behavior. In this video, we've talked about sources of behavior, and it is my abiding goal that you, the viewer, take something away from this. So my rhetorical question to you is, what are you going to do with this today? And I've got some ideas that I'm going to give you. Number one, and I talked about this early in the video, there are a myriad of theories about behavior and the origin of behavior, where behavior comes from and how to change behavior. Take 10 minutes later today. go online, type in sources of behavior, and read a little bit about what some other people think about behavior, sources of behavior, and what to do, for example, to change habits or add behavior to your repertoire. Second, think of a behavior you want to add to your repertoire. So, for example, one thing I recommend to people if they want to be a better listener is to use more silence. To just, as I say colloquially, just shut up. So maybe practice that skill, add that to your behavior. That's an application of that source of behavior, the fifth source of free will. Just say less. You might also identify what you think in terms of your own self-assessment is a good or a bad behavior that you demonstrate, and maybe think about some steps you can take to add to the good behavior and in that way diminish the negative. I don't necessarily recommend you attack your bad behaviors without a replacement behavior that is a good behavior. And by the way, you might also ask a good friend what they think about your behavior and what you might add to that behavioral repertoire or diminish or take away. So there are some ideas of things you can do, once again, not tomorrow, not next week, but later today. That's going to give you a profoundly high return on the investment of your time in this video. Thank you very much. If you've got something from the video, I want you to hit like. That's feedback for me. And subscribe because there's a lot more to come. Thanks very much.